Hello, I am seeking to share an insight that has emerged today by observing my bonsai plant. Here, here he is. It's a very interesting experience taking care of a bonsai. It's the first time I've had one, and I have learned many things from it. The first one being the importance of conditions. I had this plant since the last 4 months, and the first 2.5 months, this plant was kept in indirect light, mainly shade, because the person in the shop I bought this from suggested that this plant doesn't like sun. And I trusted their judgment. But eventually I did Google it and found out that actually loves sun. So I think that was the first lesson of this journey, to not just take things for face value, but do your own diligence. Unfortunately, in today's world, we have to, or we have communities and people we trust with whom we can dialogue who are informed. But what I want to point to is, since having shifted this to direct sun, a couple of branches within this bonsai have grown. And actually the highest branch is a new one. In fact, in the last month, most of the fast shooting branches and leaves are new altogether. And the shape of the bonsai has changed, its mass has changed, its overall structure is very different. This is very, very fascinating for a plant that normally is a slow growing plant. The most interesting thing, however, is the direction of the plant. The plant I keep right at the interface of the window where the sun comes through. And so what I have observed is the plant's new stems are always moving towards the sun, and this is called phototropic. Plants do this all the time. However, at the edge of this branch, there's always a budding leaf which unfolds into another branch and then unfolds into another branch, always moving toward the sun. And that precipitated an insight for me in terms of the structure of the self, the individual, and the environment. Now, what I would like to sense is that excessive focus on just the self allows that individuation, but if one is not being strategic and finding the right environment, that is just really hard, because then there is just no food, as if it were. At the same time, just the environment without the will to grow is not going to do anything either. There are other stems which have not moved because they are mature in a way and they've stopped growing. Applying this to one's personal development makes me wonder about this delicate balance. I feel that the Western societies are a lot more focused on individuation process, and the Eastern societies are a lot more focused on the collective and the environment. And more I'm starting to see that there is a beautiful dialectic between the two, and that actually at the tip of that bud that is growing, there is no duality between the environment and the plant. There is the spontaneous unfolding individuation of the genetic code and the plant's will to grow towards the sun, and individuals' will to continually individuate the soul to express itself, and it's it's pure intimacy with the environment in terms of the sun, the oxygen, the atmosphere, the water in the room. And so we are not actually having a differentiation as it looks like at the tip where the growth happens. And so applying that to our own life, a lot of the times when one is trying to grow, one can take a view that one needs to move and disconnect from the world, or that one needs to constantly be absorbing information or interacting and taking courses and doing practice. But I think what I learned from this plant is that there is a very interesting, delicate dance between the active and the receptive, the yin and the yang, and that actually choosing strategic environments can have a disproportionate impact on how the growth occurs. And yet, without the individual's impulse to grow, there is nothing that can change. And in the past, I had always thought of growth as a process of 90% of individual effort and 10% environment. But I have now shifted that around actually, and I think it's probably 90% environment and 10% the individual. However, in our society, that 10% is actually quite rare, especially as people continue in their lives, and very often they just drop that and eventually let the system take them. And that system can be a job, a career, a culture, a family, relationships, and so on. On the other hand, we have people who are striving for virtuosity and growth, and they end up taking everything else as a cost. So people who are obsessively practicing an art form or a sport and have, or maybe are managing companies, and they have very dysfunctional social personal lives. So the key for me is this art of not choosing either or, but finding a harmony between the two. So they each weave into the other. And that, I think, is the key to sustainable growth, not a sharp shift in growth that eventually breaks down and is brittle, nor are we talking about a very slow, sustained, but very, very slow growth that eventually doesn't get too far, is at a pace of a snail. So with that idea, I'd like to close this this strange video because it's quite late and I'm sleepy. Uh, and wherever you are finding this, I hope you continue to find that balance and harmony between your environment and your intention. And may you keep growing.